This episode of Destructoid is brought to you by Netflix. Coming up on Destructoid, Disney has frozen LucasArts in carbonite and thrown it into the Sarlacc pit, and after years of waiting, BattleBlock Theater is finally seeing the light of day, and we have our first actual look at Far Cry 3, Blood Dragon. All that and more right now on Destructoid, not live.
Welcome to Destructoid. I'm Tara Long.
And I'm Max Scoville.
Happy Not Live Friday.
Happy? It's not very happy, is it?
Well,
I'm sorry we're not live, guys. Normally we do our live shows on Friday, but today something terrible happened.
Sports.
Zach had the poops. He had to go to the sports. He
can only poop at the sports stadium.
Yeah, he's a weird man. Anyway, we're not live. We do have some news for you. It's a good show, I think. Is it a good show?
It's a good show with some not so great news, I think.
All right, well, let's get into that. If you somehow missed it, probably the biggest not so good news this week was Disney's closure of LucasArts. That sentence really pretty much says it all. But yes, the House of Mouse is effectively pulling the plug on the 30-year-old video game subsidiary of Lucasfilm, formerly known as Lucasfilm Games. The name LucasArts might not be gone forever, as Disney's intentions are to shift from internal development to a licensing model. Initially, this news hit me right there in the feels. Since some of the first games that got me sucked into gaming were LucasArts titles, and when people ask me what some of my favorite games are, one of my answers I usually give is just about everything LucasArts did between 1988 and 1998. And as sad as the studio's closure is, it actually does kind of make a lot of sense, since their track record as a development house hasn't been the greatest in more recent years. But that being said, there still was a lot of talent there, and I hope everybody lands on their feet okay. As for games, two known projects that LucasArts had in the works were Star Wars First Assault, which looked like Battlefront Light, and Star Wars 1313, which was shown off at E3 last year and promised to be the first M-rated game to bear the Star Wars name, and would ditch all the Jedi Knights and Force powers in favor of a gritty look at the criminal underworld of the lower levels of Coruscant. Of course, it figures that after its cancellation, we find out that it was going to be about Boba Fett.
Yeah.
I like Boba Fett. So a few of you guys tweeted your condolences to me after this news broke, but I'm actually not too torn up about it. This news comes by way of Kotaku, and according to their source, it wasn't originally intended to be about the fan favorite Mandalorian, but was sort of refocused after George Lucas, suddenly requested it be about Boba Fett. Too little, too late, George. Really? You couldn't have done that sooner?
George.
I think a game where you play as Boba Fett would be incredible, since he's a really quiet guy whose job is basically just to shoot and or capture people using his totally kick-ass Inspector Gadget battle armor. But for that game to be good, it needs to be made from scratch with Boba Fett in mind, and you can't just take a game about a guy shooting people and then go, oh, but what if he was Boba Fett too? And then before anyone says that bounty hunter game about Jango Fett doesn't count. Jango Fett sucks. I will not count that game. Anyway, every cloud has its silver lining, and in light of LucasArts going dark, the folks over at Raven Software have decided to share the source code for Jedi Knight 2, Jedi Outcast, and Jedi Academy. So that's all available to the public, so who knows, maybe somebody's going to mod their own Star Wars 1313. Anyway, the gang over at Destructoid put together a nice piece reminiscing on our fond memories of LucasArts as a company with games like Monkey Island, Maniac Mansion, and The Dig and stuff like that. And go read that if you want to wax nostalgic. I wrote about my personal special feelings for Indiana Jones and the Fate of Atlantis. But,
I don't care about Star Wars at all, but this is sad news.
Yeah.
It's always sad news when a company lays off a bunch of
cool
people.
games.
It's been happening a lot lately. Of course, we've been hearing rumors for a while now that Microsoft plans to turn the next Xbox console into an online-only thing. And while the company itself has remained fairly quiet on the issue, its employees apparently did not get that message. So Adam Orth is a creative director at Microsoft Studios who sounded off on his Twitter account yesterday, asking people what the big deal is with online-only consoles and telling anyone who disagrees with them to #deal with it. So Manveer Air, I hope I'm pronouncing his name correctly, he is a senior gameplay designer at BioWare. He responded to Orth's tweets, reminding him that not everybody has access to reliable broadband internet. For instance, those in Janesville, Wisconsin, which I guess is a city, or Blacksburg, Virginia, to which Orth responded, "Why on earth would I live there?" All right then. So Manveer later clarified that Orth was only trolling him when he made the comment about other cities, because obviously Twitter is the best possible avenue for sarcasm. Nobody ever misinterprets anything on there. Shortly after his tweets made news, several other industry veterans rushed to Orth's defense, including David Jaffe, who called him one of the good guys and then begged sites like NeoGAF, who were ripping him to shreds, to call off their goons. Whether he meant them intentionally or not, Orth's nonchalant statements about the future of DRM and online-only everything reflect a growing attitude amongst developers, and particularly those at big, huge companies like Microsoft, who seem to forget that their ultimate responsibility is to consumers and not themselves. I mean, Microsoft can make an online-only console all day long. Doesn't mean people are gonna buy it, especially when the only good defense they can muster is, that's the world we live in. No, Orth, it's the world that you live in. I'm suddenly reminded of a panel I saw at this year's GDC given by David Gator, a lead writer at BioWare, who brought up the topic of privilege and defined it as believing something is not a problem because it's not a problem for you. And that is exactly what I see going on here. This whole situation is so bad, and Microsoft remaining quiet on it has just made it all that much worse. I really believe that.
Hey Tara, look it. The Xbox logo has sunglasses on it.
That's cute.
Hashtag deal with it.
Internet joke.
I'm just kidding. I, for one, am very excited about the PlayStation 4. Anyway, so last episode we told you guys about Far Cry 3 Blood Dragon. I'm gonna do the claw motion every time I say that, which is either an actual game or the most convoluted April Fool's joke the gaming industry has ever seen. And today we've got a bunch of actual screenshots from the game which have surfaced thanks to those fine rascals at NeoGAF, and this game is looking like exactly what I want it to look like. You have robot hands, everything is either neon or on fire, and the game has scan lines, so it looks like you're playing on an old CRT display.
It's like the 80s.
Exactly, I think. I don't know, I was 4. Now again, we still have no idea what the Blood Dragon game is gonna be like in terms of scale or pricing or gameplay, or, I mean, it's gonna have guns and robot hands, we know that much, but the only cover art we've seen indicates it's gonna be an XBLA game, but hopefully it's a substantial actual thing that you can spend time doing, because, I mean, it looks like it's made out of lasers and candy, and I want to be inside it. I mean, you know, in the game sense, like I want to immerse myself in it. Sexually. Anyway, also on Tuesday, we mentioned that there were a couple songs embedded on the Blood Dragon site, which I think I described as retro synth-heavy ear porn, but what I didn't realize is the tracks are made by an Australian electronic music duo, Power Glove, not to be confused with video game heavy metal cover band of the same name, also Power Glove. But if they're doing the soundtrack, I could not be happier. If you hop on over to soundcloud.com/powerglove, you can listen to some of their stuff for free. It's really, I love their noises that they make with their computer machines. I stumbled across them a few years ago on some random retro synth internet compilation, and their shit is definitely quantifiably the jam, and if nothing else, it is some music to listen to hold you over until Blood Dragon comes out, or until that new Daft Punk album drops. Hey, Ubisoft, can we get some actual details? Actually, can I just have that game? Can you just give it to me so that I can play it?
2 copies, please.
Yes, we would like 2 copies of your game.
Well, one game we do have plenty of details on already is BattleBlock Theater, which finally came out this week after almost 5 steady years of anticipation. That seems to be an ongoing theme now, games taking 5 years to develop. Over on Destructoid.com, Chris Carter reviewed the game and gave it high praise, saying it's well worth the wait for any platforming fan. He particularly enjoyed the story, which is something that you don't really see a lot of in platforming games these days, but here it's been injected with that classic behemoth sense of humor that manages to keep things fresh and interesting for the whole 5-hour campaign. According to Chris, the charm of this game, though, is not the single player, it's the multiplayer, which offers both cooperative and competitive forms of play. He says the game is best played this way, either online or locally with a friend, since the multiplayer does introduce a lot of innovative mechanics that just cannot be experienced in the single-player game. So aside from the campaign, there are 8 different arena modes, all of which are playable with up to 4 people, online or locally, that seem to offer a little something for everyone. And 2 of these modes in particular, Chris called extremely intense, unique experiences that are rarely offered up in any game, much less the platforming genre. So if you like online or multiplayer games, then this is definitely right up your alley. Overall, he gave the game a 9 out of 10, said it's bursting with content, and while it may not have quite the universal appeal of some of Behemoth's previous titles, like Castle Crashers, which you have to know about because it's amazing, it's still a very fun and worthy successor. So you guys can read his full review over on Destructoid.com, or you can just go buy the game. It's out now on XBLA. It's $15. I know you have $15 lying around. Don't lie. That's like the cost of a fine meal in the Midwest.
Speaking of fine meals, we need our fine meals, so here's a word from our sponsor. In the far-off year of 2013 AD, conventional television has been obliterated by the digital streaming service known only as Netflix. With Netflix, you stream unlimited movies and TV episodes directly into your home or wherever you happen to be using one of the myriad Netflix-compatible devices. If you got a PC, Mac, PS3, 360, Wii, Wii U, 3DS, Vita, or iOS or Android device, you can watch Netflix on it. Right now, for a limited time, you can go sign up for a free trial membership. I know we have a lot of international viewers, so it's worth mentioning that Netflix isn't just available to people in the United States, it is gradually spreading around the globe. So, for your free trial, no matter where you live, if it's available, you can find it on netflix.com/Destructoid, and you can sign up right now for that free trial. All titles are subject to availability, but for our US viewers, I want to note that Netflix just added a whole bunch of Cartoon Network shows, including Dexter's Lab, Samurai Jack, Adventure Time, Venture Brothers, and Aqua Teen Hunger Force, so if you didn't have any weekend plans, you do now. Again, that is netflix.com/Destructoid, and when you sign up, we get snacks.
We get snacks. And more Netflix. All right, I'm afraid that's all the time we have for today's show. Once again, I apologize that we are not live and that our episode is a little bit shorter than usual, but like we said, our producer, Zach, left us to go get cigarettes from the store 2 days ago.
He said he'd be back by now.
He's
not back.
Anytime now.
But yeah, if you want to see some more coverage, go check out Rev3 Games. We've been picking up a ton of stuff over there. There's lots of fun things to talk about. There's our extended Casual Friday where we talk about the death of LucasArts, and I actually cry on camera. Not really. And next week I should have a review of Guacamelee going up. Do you have anything coming up soon?
Do I? Oh, I checked out Transistor this week.
Oh yeah, that's the new Supergiant
game. Supergiant game. So anyway. I'm sure there'll be an episode up on that next week on Rev3 Games. So make sure you're subscribed, and in the meantime, have a happy, wonderful, and sports-free weekend.
Don't do sports, kids.
Don't do sports.